Yeah, I'm talking about He-Man again. Well, kind of. So before the show came out, before Kevin Smith's show came out, one of the things that he was talking about was raising the stakes, right? Introducing higher stakes than had been seen in the children's cartoon previously. And he made the mistake of assuming that putting death on the table was automatically raising the stakes. And it wasn't. And there's a reason for that. There's a really, really, really big reason for that. So we need to kind of go in and figure out what are stakes in the first place. So the word stakes really is kind of uncertain origin when it comes to the gambling term. And the thing is that regardless of the origin, the precedent goes back to the 1500s and 1600s in use for wagers and gambling, which is really what we're talking about here. We're not talking about literally planting a stake in the ground. And one of the things that we have to understand is that people think about stakes in the sense of absolute value as opposed to relative value. And relative value is far more important. So you see, if you go to a high rollers table and decide to play blackjack, whatever, and they are betting in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know what high rollers bet. Maybe they bet more than that. But let's say that the wagers are in the hundreds of thousands. But these are guys who make $100,000 every minute in their stock portfolio or something like that. The stakes aren't that high. They're only high compared to somebody like me who doesn't make $100,000 in 5 years. So the fact that you're talking about relative risk here. If you were to take the average, say, Wendy's employee and go sit him down at the high stakes table, he would not even have the money to make the wager. But let's say he had that money in savings. That would be extremely high stakes for him, while it would be basically zero stakes for the other guy, because the other guy is betting 100K like you're throwing down a 20. And that is really what we're talking about. See, the idea of stakes, something to be gained or lost based on contest or contingency, that is where stakes come in. And so it's easy to think, well, in the game of life, the ultimate stakes is your life. The problem is, in fantasy and to a large degree even science fiction now, we are seeing that life is actually pretty easy to get back. There's always a way for them to, character's not dead. That character can come back. There's a clone, there's a magic spell, there's time travel, whatever. So you actually reduce the stakes down to almost nothing if they can get back. And you might say, well, in the case of He-Man, right, they didn't know that He-Man could come back. They didn't know that Adam could come back. But as the audience, we know it, right? And you have to understand that when you are writing a story or developing a story for a game or something like that, if you want the stakes to be high, then loss has to feel like loss. It has to feel like loss in world, but it also has to feel like loss to the audience, whether that be a passive audience or an interactive audience like players at a game table. The loss has to feel real. The loss has to feel tangible. They actually have to feel risk for it to actually be considered like the stakes are higher. So, yes, you have Kevin in the after show gloating, we killed Adam twice. Okay, sure. But the show is literally centered around that character. You basically, by formula, can't kill off the main character in the first act or even the second act or anything. The only time that the death of the main character actually makes sense is at the end, in the final act, kind of either during the climax or after the climax, because they're putting a button on it and they're tying up the story. So we basically automatically know, especially in a long-standing property like this, but we automatically know that if we see somebody who is important to the story, somebody who we already know is important to the story, bite the dust, we pretty much know they're coming back. Especially when you don't see a body. especially when you don't see a body. But the thing is that we know they're coming back. Resurrection is overdone at this point. And it's not to say that you can't do a strong resurrection, but even the resurrection has to cost something. The resurrection has to be an ordeal, otherwise it is meaningless. You have to be able to make the audience or the participants feel like loss and gain are on the table, just as if they were betting on the edge of their wallet. That's how you create stakes, and the feeling of the height or depth of the stakes is by actually making them feel like this is a loss that is going to be very difficult to recover from, or this is a loss that is going to be unrecoverable. And then sometimes it's like, this is a gain that is absolutely life-changing, right? That's where the stakes have to, that's where the stakes matter. And I think a lot of, this is a problem with kind of, corporate entertainment, is they don't want to kill off their cash cow. So they give you the shell of, oh, life and death is on the line, but he comes back later, right? Or it wasn't really lethal, they always do this. It is such a common thing that it cheapens it. It cheapens it by a lot. And so this is really more of a cautionary tale to everybody. It's like, if you want to use death and rebirth, if you want to use resurrection, that's fine. But do it in a way where the audience or the participants, again, if you're gaming, are actually engaged in experiencing the loss. If at any moment they just feel like, we're going to get that back next week. We're just going to get that back. It was actually one of the problems with Supernatural. I loved Supernatural. It was a fantastic show. But there were some seasons where it didn't matter how big they did things. It always felt like, they're going to get out of this. No problem. So they keep on amplifying the threat level, but then they keep coming up with dumb and contrived ways to get people out of it. Nothing ever felt really permanent except when it was convenient to the plot, when they needed to write a character off the show or something. Death and resurrection are supposed to be, these are supposed to be really, really big moments. And by overusing the way that they're overused, it becomes cheap, it becomes trite, and it frankly has no impact anymore. People need to take a break from that for a while, or they need to find a way to make it feel like it actually means something. I don't know that there's much more that I can say about this, because this is a pretty cut and dried topic, and I really don't need to drone on, and the last video was way too long. So I will talk to you guys later, but yeah, just keep that in mind, right? High stakes doesn't automatically mean, we get to kill people and then resurrect them and then kill them and resurrect them and then kill them and resurrect them and then fake kill them and then fake bring them back. Stop. All right? Storytelling is too important to human culture to cheapen it like that. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Good journey.
Chocolate-covered laser discs, flashing like a dagger in the night.